Hey, it is any old gamer, and today we're going to be talking about raids and reapps. Now behind me, I've actually got an R3 run going, and I want you to bear with me. I'm not suggesting that you farm R3, but the point that I want to make is that R3 still drops gems and grinds, and if you farm it, that's how you make your runes good enough to get to R4 and R5. Now me personally, I spent a solid month in R3. When I was starting to make that transition from early to mid game or early mid to mid, whatever you want to call it, I couldn't farm R5. My runes weren't good enough. So I spent a long time in R3 and then I built an R4 team. But this was before they changed raid, and I actually found that I was doing R3 runs in about 50 seconds and the R4 runs were 2.5 minutes. So I just stayed in R3 and kept farming. But the point here is that raiding really makes a huge difference. Now you see in the background, I got this blue rare rage rune, rage grind. So that's a drop from R3. Now R3 can drop magics, it can drop the green ones, and those are less useful. But when you're doing R5, you're gonna see a lot of rare drops, and I personally still use most of them. If you were to grind all of your runes with +6 attack, that's an extra 24% attack. That might be enough to bring you up to R4. Now, is this guaranteed? No, it's going to be a range of 3 to 6. So the idea here is that you farm it a bunch, you get a bunch of them, and then you grind and regrind until you get a max. Now, let me show you a little bit more what I mean by this and why I say that. Okay, we've got the optimizer loaded up right now, and you can see that I have actually circled quality rare runes. So these are all of my rare runes. Now they're sorted by the highest efficiency, so you can see there's some crazy ones up here, 105, 104, 102. These are just blue runes. And actually, if we go down a little bit and look for something without innate, here we go. This one has no innate, and it's a 95% crit damage rune that just started off as a blue rune. So let's look at this rune. We've got a 7% grind on attack, 6% on defense, 7% on HP, and 4 on speed. So that's basically a max hero, a max rare, so the heroes are purple. It's a max hero, a max rare, which is the blue, another max hero, and another max hero. Now, R3 does drop heroes. It drops legends, but it's so rare it's not even worth considering. So basically, R3 drops the magics, which are green, the rares, and the heroes, and the most common drop is the rares. So if we look at this rune right here, this is a rare rune, slot 4 crit damage, 95%, and if you were to just drop off 1% attack, so we assume that it was a maximum grind of a rare rune. We drop off 1% attack, we drop off 1 speed, drop off 1 HP, and we hit save, and we're going to see that this becomes a 93% rune. So this rune right here is actually still a quality rune, and that's starting from a blue rune that had absolutely no innate. It's starting from like one of the worst runes that you could get to drop. Obviously, it had good substats and it rolled great, but even so, it has all this efficiency because of the grinds, and those grinds don't have to come from R5 if you're not able to run R5 yet. If you just try and farm better runes in the dungeon, you're going for 1,000 to 1 shot to get a legend drop, and then 10,000 to 1 to get the perfect drops, and it's going to take you forever. But if you take some rares or some heroes that roll decently and you grind those, they're going to be much better than a legend rune. So let me give you one more example. I've got some runes that are completely ungrinded. So we're going to come over here and we're going to look at Violent, and now we're going to look for Legend, and we're going to bring it to the other direction, the lowest efficiency. So here are some Legend Violent runes. This top one even has an innate stat, and it's only, what, 70% efficiency. Now when we look at this rune, we can see it's basically a garbage rune, but let's just take a look at what we could do with this rune with only rare grinds and a rare gem. So we would probably, because it's a defense rune, we would gem that flat attack, probably attack percentage on it. So the rare gem for attack percentage is 5 to 9. So what we're going to do is take that midpoint and we're just going to call it 7% attack. And then we're going to go ahead and grind on a max grind, which makes it 13% attack. Now the speed right here, we're going to put on a max rare grind, which makes it 16 speed. For the HP, we're going to put on a max rare, which is 11. And for the defense flat, we're going to put on kind of a midpoint. We'll give it +15 to put it to 42, and we hit save. And we just used blue gems and grinds that you would get from R3, and we turned it into an 89% rune. Now, most of the time, people will say that they have trouble getting to an 89% rune. That's because they're not raiding. So R3 will definitely help you progress a lot. Okay, next we're going to talk a little bit about which gems and grinds you should keep. So for starters, you should keep all legend drops, no matter if they're flat, resistance, accuracy, whatever the case may be, unless you start to have like a really big stockpile of them. So this right here is a legend flat defense. Now that's something that I'm almost never going to use. I might in a very, very rare and specific instance, so I don't need to have like 4 of them, but it's definitely worth it for me to have 1 or maybe even 2 of them. If we look over at the grinds, this right here, it's a legend flat defense grind. So again, I'm not going to use a ton of them, but I am going to use some of them. So always keep the legends, whatever they are, even if they're flat. And then if you start to get 2 or 3 of them, and only if your grinds are full, then you might consider selling some of those so that you don't have too many. Now, with the heroes, I would also keep at least 1 of everything, and I would keep every hero HP percent, defense percent, speed, attack percent, crit rate that you get. I would also keep 1 or 2 crit damage and 1 or 2 accuracy or resistance for every rune set, unless you happen to already have legend ones. Now for the rares, I personally do not keep accuracy, resistance, crit damage, crit rate. For those, I just feel that you can usually gem something better. Like even gemming this legend flat defense, by the time we grind it, you'll have, let's say, 50 or 60 defense. That's close to 10% defense compared to like the 5 or 6 accuracy or crit rate or resistance that you get from a rare. So for these rare gems, I would only keep the percentage stats, HP, attack, defense. And then as far as speed goes, I'm kind of on the fence, but I think it's worth keeping the rare speeds. But a lot of time, I will only keep a rare speed if it max rolls. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll gem the rare speed on first. And then if it doesn't max roll, I'll just gem something else right over it. Or I'll save up and I'll have 3 or 4 of them and then just gem and re-gem until I get +6. But depending on your stage of the game, it can be tough to find use for a rune that doesn't have enough speed. Usually in early stages of the game, what you're looking for is big offensive stats and a little bit of sustainability to build your dungeon teams. Once you move into PvP, speed matters a lot more. And then unless it's just like the perfect rune, like it quad-rolled HP, most of the time you're going to be looking for more than the 3 to 4 speed. But if you get a max roll 6, and then you put like a max roll hero grind, it's 10 speed, that can usually be usable in PvP, especially through most of mid-game. Now for the grinds, you're obviously going to keep all legend grinds no matter what they are. Of course, you can't grind accuracy, resistance, crit rate, crit damage. So we're only talking about percentage-based stats plus speed right here, and then the flats. So you're going to keep all legend grinds if they're flat. Now, me personally, I don't keep hero grinds that are flat stat. I know a lot of players, even endgame players, who do, so I'm not going to tell you it's a definite sell. But I will tell you that for me personally, because we're talking about such a little amount of efficiency that's added to the rune, it's basically a 62,000 mana difference. You sell it for 12,000 or you use it for 50,000. So for that reason, I don't keep a lot of the heroes. You might, if you have a lot of runes with flat stats that are ungrinded, then it's worth keeping them and grinding them. And then once all of them have been grinded, then you could start selling the heroes. Now for the rares, I'm going to tell you, do not keep them for flat stats. They just do not give you enough value out of them. But I would keep all other rare grinds. You can see right behind me, I've got a bunch of rares here. I grind and regrind all of my runes over and over until they hit at least +6. The better runes, I regrind them until they hit +7 or +10 if I've got legends. We've got hundreds or thousands of runes, so you can't regrind every one to max legend, but the more you grind, the more depth you create. So I use every blue, purple, and orange on my runes that I get until there's just nothing left. So for example, right now with guard, every single rune I have, I think, is grinded to +6 or better. So those I sell the rares and just keep the heroes and wait until something else comes up. And just to be clear, if you're not sure what I mean by regrinding, what I mean is if you grind and you don't hit a max roll, you grind that rune again. So let's take a look here and see if there's an example. So right now, this particular rune is it's got 8+6 defense and it's got 9+6 attack. So I'm not going to regrind the attack because I may regem it later to try and get something better. But I am going to go ahead and regrind the defense and try to get +7. And then if it goes through a couple of tries, it goes through a couple of tries. Sometimes you'll hit it on your first shot. Sometimes you'll wind up using 8 or 10 of them. Now, one last point I want to make on the grindstones. You just saw me go in and just start grinding a random rune. That is not actually how I would normally do it, and it's not how I recommend doing it. So the first thing I do is I come over here in the game and I take a look to see what I have. I come back over here to the optimizer. I'll go ahead and I'll search for shield runes equipped on monsters with an HP sub. And then I'll scroll down and I personally just sort by efficiency so that I can see which runes are basically my best runes. And then, of course, I'm also looking to see which runes are on which monster. And I'll scroll down here and I see, like, just the grind. So I see 7, 10, 7, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. And then I find this one down here on Orochi. It's a shield 3 rune. The camera's covering it, but let's see. So it's a shield 3 rune. So I come back over here to the game. And I go ahead and I regrind this rune. And we miss, so we go ahead and we regrind again. And we just keep doing it until we get +7 or at a minimum +6. Now you'll also notice that I have accuracy gemmed on this rune. And the reason for that, of course, is because the defense percent is innate. So we couldn't get another grindable stat on a shield 3. And so my options were accuracy or crit damage. And for Orochi, we went with accuracy. I come to the last page and I see that there's nothing that I urgently need to regrind. So now I switch over to inventory. And I start from the last page and work my way back to see if there's anything that's just simply not grinded. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about in this video is reapps. So reapps are very rare, and there's a couple of different philosophies. And this is really, I think, very important to decide which philosophy you want to follow. And some of this philosophy depends on whether or not you're free to play or you buy reapp packs. So for a free-to-play player, you're not going to get more than 15 to 20 reapps a month. You get 12 through crafting, and then there's some occasional ones through events, but your reapps are going to be extremely limited, and you have to use them judiciously. If you are buying reapps, you're still not getting a ton. Even if you bought all of them, you're still only getting about 65 a month. And trust me, you can go through 10, 20 or more reapps on a single rune and still not get something good. So it is important to use your reapps wisely. Now, there are two philosophies that you can use when deciding what to reapp. The first one is to try and fill need. So if we look at my rune graph over here and we go by slot amount, you'll see that I have by far and away the fewest slot 6s, and I have the most of 1s, 3s, and 5s. Now, there's reasons for this. Our standards for each rune are going to be slightly different, and it's easier to get certain types of runes. So a slot 6 can drop accuracy, resistance, defense, attack, HP. All of those are usable, although the accuracy and resistance we use much less of, so we need them to be really good. But then it can also drop flats, which we just basically sell right away. Slot 1 will always be flat, and it can never have defense percent, which means there are fewer stat combinations on it, which means it's easier to get a good one, it's easier to get a fast one, and we're not going to sell them just because the main stat rolls bad. We're only selling them if the substats roll bad. So we wind up with more, and slot 3 is the same thing. So we wind up with more slots 1 and 3. Slot 5s are the most customizable runes because they can have all substats on them. So if you get the right stat mix, you can get them to be higher efficiency than pretty much anything else because you could gem a fourth grindable stat on them. So you can grind a slot 4. Well, you can grind a slot 5 4 times. You can also grind a slot 4 crit damage or crit rate 4 times. So those are the runes that can be the highest efficiency. What it comes down to is this. You have two choices. Your first choice is to speed chase. You go for the fastest runes. This is something that you're usually going to do when you're in endgame. And your best odds to reapp a really fast rune is if it's a slot 1 or slot 3 with an innate. 7 possible stats, 4 of them are going on the rune. There's a better than 50-50 chance that the rune will have speed. Now, the other school of thought is that you go for the runes that you're shortest on. Like for me, I'm shortest especially on the slots 4 and 6. I'm also a little short on slot 2, but I'm more short on 4 and 6. So with slot 2s, I will only reapp speed because we use very few of the other ones, and because we use few, we're able to use our best ones of them. And speed is also a little bit easier to reapp because you don't need speed on your speed rune. So anything that has like 3 percentage-based stats is going to be great, or 2 percentage-based stats with crit rate or accuracy, and you can gem on the 3rd percentage stat. So it's fairly easy to reapp a speed rune. And then on slots 4 and 6, I would reapp, obviously, your crit damage and HP slot 4, your attack or HP slot 6, and then if you just have like an outstanding rune or a need for defense percent, then I would reapp those as well. So I'm not really going to tell you guys which of these two ways you should go. I'll tell you that me personally, I reapp the slots 2, 4, and 6 only. I very rarely reapp the others. And as a result, I get fewer usable runes from my reapps, but every time I do get a good rune, it allows me to build an entire new monster because I just have tons and tons of slot 1 and 3 that are already in inventory that I can't use because I don't have enough good slot 6. Now, in the optimizer, if you're looking for reapp targets, there's a pretty easy way to do this. You come in here and you look for legend quality and you go not innate. And that's going to bring up all of your legend runes. And by the way, I did that quick, so I want to do this again. You go not innate. Well, I'm saying not innate. I'm sorry. You go not none. So right here, we go not none. And that brings up all of my legend runes with an innate stat. So you see I've got 110 legends with innate out of 1,600 runes. And then I sort by reverse efficiency, so I go from the lowest up. If I only wanted to look for slot 4 and 6, I put it this way. If I wanted to look for slots 1, 3, and 5, I would click the not and do it this way. So in this case, we're going to come down, we're going to look at slots 4 and 6, and now we see we're down to 26 runes. We're sorted by reverse efficiency. And we see we've actually got a Nemesis slot 6 here that's really low efficiency. That would normally be a good reapp candidate. Now, why haven't I reapped it yet? It's because it has this innate stat of HP percent. So when we're picking the runes to reapp, we want to avoid anything that has innate HP, attack, or defense, because these are all stats that you're hoping to get on the rune when you do reapp, and if they're innate, you can't grind them. You also don't want speed. So we're going to go not innate speed, HP, defense, or attack percent. And I've obviously kept the will slot 4 because it's already at 15 speed. Then I've got a Vio slot 6, but it's accuracy, and I don't want to reapp accuracy. So again, we're going to come up here and we're going to say not accuracy or resistance, and we reduce it further down to 19. Now I also pretty much only want to rune violent, reapp, excuse me, I only want to reapp violent, will, or swift, so I'm going to put those right here. And now we're down to just 5 reapp targets. So although I would not normally recommend reapping a defense rune, especially a slot 4 defense rune, for purposes of this video, we're going to go ahead and do it. Now, what are we looking for when we reapp? Obviously, we're looking for speed. That's the first thing almost everybody's looking for. It is not the only thing, though. That's really important to recognize. At the end of the day, we're also looking for a rune that's got great efficiency and or great synergy. So when I reapp this rune, what if it reapped into 36 HP with no speed? Would I keep it? Hell yes, because I could gem on the speed and add 12 speed myself. I call it 12. Technically, you can get 15 speed. A max legend and a max legend is 15. Realistically, it's really hard to get those legends, and then when you do, they don't roll that high. So for me, 11 or 12 is about how much speed you can add. So if the rune has 8 or less speed, that's equal to a gem for me, basically, because I figure I can gem on 8 speed if I gem and re-gem the heroes a couple of times. So anything 8 or less is the same thing as basically not having speed. I'm pretty much looking for the rune to have like 15 plus speed so that I can grind it to 19 or 20. Or I'm looking for it to have really, really good overall stats. In this case, lots of HP with a little bit of attack and speed and so forth. But here's what we're going to do right now. We're going to take a look at what this rune would be now that we've reapped it and decide if we're going to keep it or not. So remember that we're at 82% right now, and that's with attack percent already grinded. So when we change this rune, we're now going to say there is no speed, but there is a flat defense. So I'm going to assume that I will gem on 11 speed because we're looking at what the rune will be after it's fully gemmed and grinded. It has 14% attack, so when I grind that, it'll move to 21% attack. It has 12% HP, so when I grind that, it'll move to 19% HP. And then it has 12 resistance, and I can't do anything with that. So we're going to save it, and we will see that this rune is going to be a 99% efficiency rune. So if I keep the existing stats, it's 99 efficiency, but it's on the slow side. It's going to be kind of hard to use. Now I go back and I look at the old stats one more time, but I pretend that I'm actually going ahead and grinding these. So we're going to make the speed 19. We're going to make the attack 13 because it's already partially grinded. So the speed gets grinded to 19. The attack percentage will move to 13. We are going to assume that we will gem this resistance into an HP, and we'll get 16-ish. We'll get 9 plus 7 on the HP. And then the attack flat, we're just going to have to grind as it is, which would bring it up to about 75. We go ahead and save this, and we can see that it would be 102% rune with more speed. So basically, the stats don't synergize quite as well here because of that big chunk of flat attack, but the original rune, which, you know, if you take away the speed, this side actually looks like it's a better rune because it's got 2 immediately grindable stats, it's got the resistance, which works better for will, but this rune is actually the more efficient one. Once we factor in all of the gems and grinds, this side is going to be more efficient, so we keep this side instead. So let's see if we can get an upgrade off of this rune. Mostly what we want is super fast. It's faster. Actually synergizes a little bit better. So we're giving up 8 resistance, and in exchange we're going to have an 18 speed rune. It's a much more synergized rune. And then that HP flat, we can actually gem to HP percent, making it a triple grindable rune. So this is clearly a big upgrade. Is it going to be the best rune I have? No, but it's a huge upgrade, and at the end of the day, that's what reapp should be about. You shouldn't be hunting for the best rune you've ever seen. You should just be hunting to make your overall rune quality better. So that's it for today's video, guys. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, if you're still with me to this point, then that means that you probably liked the video, found it entertaining, or even better, both. So please smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below because those things help the channel grow, and more importantly, they show me that the video is useful, and that's the whole reason I do this in the first place.